Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have two articles in this episode for you. The URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. The first one here is off of BizPack Review, and it says, President Trump goes right for the jugular in response to violent Berkeley riots, suppression of free speech. President Donald Trump took to social media early Thursday morning to respond to the reprehensible behavior the night before at the University of California, Berkeley. And he proved once again that he knows how to hit where it hurts. A massive riot broke out at the university Wednesday night in protest of a scheduled appearance by Breitbart news editor Milo Yivellis. Left-wing fascist claiming to be anti-fascist turned to violence to shut down the event, beating supporters up in the streets, throwing Molotov cocktails and smashing glass all around. With little interference from campus police, UC Berkeley reported no arrest as of 9:30 p.m. Trump posted a comment on Twitter suggesting it may be time to go after the purse of colleges who refuse to allow speech other than progressive left-wing ideology. If UC Berkeley does not allow free speech and practices on innocent people with a different point of view, no federal funds, he tweeted. And that's a lot of money for the school. UC Berkeley, which calls itself the home of free speech movement, received $370 million in federal research money in 2015-2016 alone. Fox News told Starnes, or try this again, Fox News, Todd Starnes, threw out the same idea Thursday morning. That should enrage the nation. Starnes called on Trump to immediately issue an executive order blocking any federal funding at Berkeley, as well as any other public university that wants to free speech. And there it shows his tweet. The idea of withholding federal dollars proved to be popular on social media. Here's a sampling of responses from Twitter. From here, first one says, Trump threatens no federal fundings for Berkeley. Another one says, attaboy. Another one says, President Trump taking it to the snowflakes, making America great again, one tweet at a time. And another one here says, UC Berkeley is a cesspool of liberal extremism, federal funds. And there's some other ones if you want to pull that up to take a look at that for yourself. The next one I have is off of naturalnews.com, and it says, hashtag defund Berkeley. Time to pull all federal funds from UC Berkeley after liberal students turn to violent thugs to block Milo's speech. UC Berkeley students turned into violent criminal thugs who set fires and attempted to stage a mass violent assault on gay conservative activist Milo Yiannopoulos last night. The latest act of unhinged, mindless violence by left-wing extremists who continue to demonstrate extreme intolerance, hatred, and lawlessness across America. News of the rioting made cable news last night as students smashed ATMs and bank windows, looted a Starbucks, beat Trump supporters, pepper sprayed innocent individuals, and set fires in the streets. Words kill Trump on storefronts, reports Breitbart News. This speech was canceled by UC Berkeley police as security failed. Yiannopoulos was evacuated from the area. No condemnation of the violence from Democrats or the left-wing media. Remarkably, there isn't a single left-wing media outlet or left-wing politician who has condemned the extreme violence carried out by UC Berkeley extremists. The violence even included a chemical assault on a Milo supporter, a young woman who was pepper sprayed in the face for daring to talk to a reporter in support of Milo. The extremist and anti-American left-wing media continues to characterize these violent assaults and dangerous riots as peaceful protests, despite the clear acts of extreme violence and thuggery being pursued by protesters. The violence, of course, is actually being egged on by the left-wing media, which seeks to cause maximum violence and chaos across America. Bill says, you have protesters who feel very emboldened, added Conway, who served as Trump's 2016 presidential campaign manager. They've got media cameras following them. They give interviews. I don't even know if they testing. Really, what is it? The free speech? Having someone on your campus who has a dissenting point of view or wants to present an alternate point of view? Yiannopoulos blamed the cancellation on it to the violent left-wing protesters. One thing I do know for sure, the left is absolutely terrified of free speech and will do literally anything to shut it down, he wrote on Facebook. Come domestic terrorism organization. Yiannopoulos is correct. The violent, unhinged left has developed into a lawless gang of domestic terrorists who have zero tolerance for the speech of anyone who does not bow down to the insanity of liberalism. This is all being deliberately pushed by the unhinged left-wing media, which is engaged in what I call journo-terrorism. In the Natural News article from November 13th of last year, I predicted exactly what we're seeing unfold today in Berkeley. Victims of journo-terrorism, media hypnosis. They are obviously very traumatized by their own beliefs, and while many people might enjoy an uproarious evening of laughter just watching these lunatics totally freak out, the truth is that they have been victimized and even hypnotized by the leftist media. These people are, of course, clinically delusional. Their minds have been programmed with so many layers of disinformation and fear that they can no longer recognize the difference between what's real versus fiction. They're trapped in a mental prison of fear carefully constructed by the leftist media for the sole purpose of control over the psychology of the electorate. Leftists who watch MSNBC, in other words, and Rachel Maddow in particular, have been swept into an orchestrated psyop, psychological operation that might as well be called journo-terrorism. President Trump threatens to withhold federal funds from Berkeley. It's time to hashtag defund Berkeley for breeding, encouraging this brand of extremism on the unhinged left. As the Hill reports, Trump meanwhile threatened to cut Berkeley's federal funding Thursday if the California campus does not allow free speech and practices violence on innocent people with a different point of view. Why should U.S. taxpayers fund these radical left-wing universities that deliberately train their students to be liberal extremists and domestic terrorists? Become a terrorism indoctrination center and training camp for the left's safe space. Thugs who are so terrified of conservative ideas that they physically and violently attack those who might utter them. I say it's not to hashtag defund Berkeley, but to unleash mass arrests of these left-wing terrorists who threaten the very fabric of liberty in America. To declare a national emergency and temporarily take over the extremist left-wing media. The Berkeley domestic terrorists aren't acting in a vacuum. They've all been indoctrinated by the journo-terrorism of the left-wing media. One way to halt terrorism is for President Trump to declare a national emergency to temporarily seize control of those media outlets engaged in the violence demonstrated in Berkeley. CNN, MSNBC, NYT, and the Washington Post are all engaged in deliberate campaigns of disinformation and indoctrination to radicalize leftists across America. They want violence. They want chaos. They want to silence free speech of well-spoken conservatives like Milo, who have been competing or who have a competing message for college students. And every single one of these former news outlets is deliberately engaged in the printing of malicious lies to push the false narrative that results in hatred towards Trump and his supporters. Thus, we the people may quite literally have to temporarily silence the irresponsible, violence-inciting speech of the left-wing media. The continued rise of left-wing terrorism now being clearly demonstrated in places like Berkeley. Stand idly by and watch a George Soros-controlled media apparatus tear this nation apart at the seams through the deliberate spread of the disinformation, which is CNN's entire purpose for existing. If the left-wing violence continues, we must call for President Trump to take a decisive action to root out the communists and terror-provoking propagandists that have infiltrated the left-wing media. Those individuals must be identified, arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned. Once that's accomplished, the emergency order can be lifted and the media can resume its free press operations, absent the insidious influence of the anti-American subversives who presently write all the news scripts for CNN, MSNBC, and so on. We're in a state of war. Make no mistake. A war's already underway in America, and it's a war being waged by the unhinged left in an attempt to destroy America, obliterate liberty, collapse the Trump administration, and overthrow the republic. This war is now moving from the words stage to the domestic terrorism stage, and if the lying left-wing media is allowed to continue inciting the hatred against America that underlies violent criminal thugs, this war will only escalate. This is the plan of the left and of those who control the left, such as George Soros. That's why we're already seeing calls for President Trump to issue an international arrest warrant for George Soros. Of what needs to happen to win this war, President Trump must seriously consider declaring complicit media propagandists to be enemies of America and take every necessary step to halt their continued efforts to undermine America by fomenting violence and terrorism among unhinged leftists. On the verge of an actual kinetic civil war. The left, of course, will lose badly in such a conflict, as there are tens of millions of armed defenders of the republic who will quite readily participate in the defense of their own nation against the organized violence of communist-leaning leftists. The outcome won't be pretty, but it's not in question. The Second Amendment wins any such foreseeable conflict in America. Come to that, but unless the journo terrorists are stopped from inciting further violence, that's exactly where it's going. My message to President Trump on all this is simple. If you wish to prevent this from escalating to a state of kinetic civil war, you must find a way to halt the dishonest left-wing media and further incite violence and intolerance among leftists. It's time to silence the deliberate lies of the left-wing media and stop the cycle of violence that leads to the kind of domestic terrorism we all witnessed last night at Berkeley. And there is a podcast that he's put out here in this. If you want to, you can pull up that URL, and if you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up and share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And don't forget to subscribe so you stay informed. I got another episode to follow. See you then.